Hello everyone and welcome back to Classic Comics. So I'm finally gonna review this 100-page giant Aquaman number 2. I did the first one of these a few days back, and I'm gonna knock this one out. Now the last video went a little long. It was almost 30 minutes. And after I edited it, it was still about 24 minutes, so I'll try to make this one a little quicker. I like to keep them under 20 minutes if I can. So I said in the last video, I like these 100-page giant comics. They remind me of the extra-size comics that DC used to do back in the mid to late 70s. There was a Detective Comics, Batman Family, Superman Family, Adventure Comics, which were all double-sized books for several years. Oh, and World's Finest, also World's Finest too. I think these 100-page comics are a good value for the money. Most comics are $4 anyway nowadays, with about 20 to 24 pages of content. These give you about 4 times as many pages of story, but for only $1 more. So, yeah, I think they're a good idea. Now, let's get into this. So, again, we have 5 stories here, about 4 full comics worth of material. Now, the first story here is Sea Devils, written by Michael Gray with art by Aaron Lopresti and Matt Ryan. I've liked Lopresti's work for a long time. He started out doing art for the Ultraverse back in the 90s, if any of you remember that. He did a book called Sludge, and he went on to do plenty of work for both DC and Marvel over the years. Now, this story is about 16 pages. And it has Aquaman investigating some toxic waste dumping that is mutating sea life. He discovers that the Sea Devils are also on the case, and they're also after the people responsible. Now, if you don't know them, the Sea Devils, they were a Silver Age team of characters. They were basically these scuba divers and explorers who, they tended to encounter sea monsters and that sort of thing. Now, it turns out the Russian mob is behind the dumping, and Aquaman and the Sea Devils team up to beat them. But a bomb gets knocked overboard, and it hits the pile of toxic waste at the bottom and releases this big mutated anglerfish here. And then it attacks the boat, and it's kind of crazed, so it won't listen to Aquaman's commands, so he has to fight it. And I felt really sorry for this poor fish. I mean, it's just minding its business, and it gets mutated, and then gets a bomb dropped on it, and then it just defends itself, and they wind up killing it. And I felt bad for the poor fish. So at the end, Aquaman says, okay, look, you Sea Devils, you're basically eco-terrorists, but if you'll behave, I'll let you work for me. And they agree to it. This one, it's okay. The story's fine. Again, I like Lopresti's art. But again, I felt bad for the fish, so it kind of gave me the sads. Then we get to an 8-page story starring Aqualad called Worth. And this was written by Dave Wielgoes. I don't know. Is that how you say it? The art is by Jose Luis and Adriano Di Benedetto. Now, Aqualad is basically trying to set up like a dating profile. He's gay, so I don't know. I guess he's setting it up on Grindr. I don't know. But, and then he actually hits on the friend who's helping him set up the profile, and he's like, yeah, I like you, but not like that. He gets embarrassed, so he leaves. And then he's attacked by Electrocutioner. Aqualad is Black Manta's son. And apparently Manta owes Electrocutioner some money, and so he's going to take it out on Aqualad. So they have a brief little battle. but Aquaman actually winds up beating him. But then Manta shows up, and then he and Aqualad actually fight, but Aqualad uses his hard water powers to basically smash Black Manta's face mask, his helmet open, and nearly drowns him and beats him. But then, the story just kind of ends. It's too bad because the writer, Will Goes, actually gave some very good characterization in these pages. So Aqualad is gay in addition to being half Atlantean. So he often feels like he has trouble fitting in. And Electrocutioner actually kind of exploits that during the fight, taunting him and telling Aqualad that he's too needy and too desperate for approval. And Aqualad denies this, but it's an interesting point to make, and a good bit of characterization in a story this short. So yeah, some nice character work, and I like the art. This team, Luis Garcia and Benedetto, I mean, they do pretty well. The artwork, it kind of reminds me of Phil Jimenez, if you know who that is. I'd love to see more from these two. If DC is smart, they'll give them more work. But the figure work is good. The figures, they tend to be dynamic. They don't seem really stiff. And the storytelling is pretty good. I like how they kind of mix up the panels, the panel work, giving you different looks instead of just the same thing page after page. So yeah, I mean, I like it. The only complaint is that the story feels a little incomplete. First of all, Aqualad defeats Manta way too easily. He basically just beats him in one panel. I mean, if he can beat Manta that easily, then is it really that impressive if Aquaman defeats him? So I didn't like that. And yeah, the story just kind of ends abruptly. They really needed a few more pages for the story. Okay, now we get to the best part of this comic. This is the first chapter of the Throne of Atlantis storyline that ran in Aquaman and Justice League back in 2012, I think. So it starts off, we have some missiles that get fired from a naval ship as part of a test, but then they go off in the wrong direction, and long story short, they wind up hitting Atlantis. And look at this panel. Look at the panel. Look at the coloring there. I mean, the coloring in this story is just fantastic. Then we get Batman fighting some of the Penguin's goons. And then they get the drop on Batman, and then Aquaman arrives to help him defeat the Penguin henchmen. And this story is written by Jeff Johns, with pencils by Ivan Reis and inks by Joe Prado. And the colors, which I mentioned, are just fantastic in the story, by Joe Prado. By Rod Reis. By Rod Reis. So Aquaman tells Batman that all the sea life in the ocean is heading away from the coast and out to sea. They won't respond to his commands, and he thinks this suggests that there's some sort of attack coming from by the creatures from the trench, because this is the way the fish behaved the last time that happened. Then Mera arrives, and basically, I mean, God, look at the coloring and the shading in the colors on that panel. I mean, that looks fantastic. But she just confirms what Aquaman had already noted, that the fish are all heading straight out to sea and getting as far away from the coast as they can. We then cut to Metropolis, and we have Superman and Wonder Woman on a date. Now, this is during the New 52, And during that period, they had Superman and Wonder Woman kind of in a romance. And so this is basically like their first date together. And when they were going out, Clark suggested that in order to avoid notice, she do the old, wear a pair of eyeglasses to disguise yourself thing. And she's kind of surprised and notes, hey, this actually works. And they have a little discussion about why that is. And Clark basically says, well, I think it's because most people just assume that we don't have secret identities, that we just fight crime 24/7 and we don't really have any private lives. And then in the middle of this, the power goes out. And then we see this big 2-page spread here, a tidal wave carrying that aircraft carrier from the beginning of the story is being carried into the city by the tidal wave. And Superman and Wonder Woman, go into action. And they catch the aircraft carrier. And look at that shot there. That's just fantastic. But yeah, you see them there. They sort of catch the aircraft carrying, prevent it from tumbling into any buildings. But they aren't able to stop the water, so the water is still rushing through the city. And Lois gets caught in the wave, and she's drowning. But then Volko, who is Aquaman's mentor, basically, he arrives to save her. And he says, we need to find the king. We need to find Arthur. He has to stop his brother. And then we cut back to Gotham. And the water's receding because there's a tidal wave coming to hit Gotham. And Aquaman realizes what's going on. And he says, this is the Atlantean battle plan. They're launching an attack on the surface. And Batman says, well, how do you know that? And Aquaman says, well, I helped plan them. I helped write the plan. And then we get this gorgeous final page here, this full page shot of Ocean Master with the Atlantean armies behind him. Now, I'm going to be a total shill here and say that, first of all, Aquaman's one of my favorite characters, and this is maybe his best story. It's definitely up there. It's probably in the top 3. Everything about this story is on point. Everything is great. The story is great. The interaction between the characters is great. Everyone's behaving as they should. And honestly, what can you say about Ivan Reis's art? Ivan Reis is the best in the business right now, in my opinion. He just doesn't do bad or even mediocre work. He's brilliant, and Joe Prado's inks complement his work perfectly. And again, the coloring is just fantastic. You look at like the gradations of the yellow and the purple on this Atlantean here to, where is it? To kind of like the shimmering of Aquaman's scale shirt. And then, the gradations of light and dark in this final panel, which just look fantastic. If you've wanted to read The Throne of Atlantis, but you haven't been able to, they're obviously reprinting that storyline in these 100-page giants. The first one actually had a prologue story to that, and then this one is chapter 1, so I'm assuming as they go forward, they're going to keep reprinting that story. Again, and honestly, the Throne of Atlantis storyline, that's worth the $5 price tag, in my opinion. I wouldn't say that about many books, but I would say it for that. If you saw the Aquaman movie, they borrowed several plot points from that story, or from this storyline for the movie. And yeah, I just can't say enough complimentary things about it, so we'll just move on. And let's see. So the next story, again, is from Mara's recent comic book run. Now, issue 1 had one of her stories, and this follows directly on that. I'm going to kind of speed up here so I can try and keep this under 20 minutes. Written by Dan Abnett, art by Lan Medina, Norm Rapmund, And basically, Atlantis, Arthur's rulership of Atlantis has been usurped by an Atlantean, and he's back in Atlantis sort of fighting a resistance to try and overthrow the guy. Mira is injured, and she can't breathe water, so she's stuck up on land, basically. She can't go back. Now, Ocean Master, after the Throne of Atlantis storyline, he actually stayed up on the surface for a while. He actually wound up taking refuge with this woman and her son, and he kind of fell for her and was very fond of her kid and was staying there for a while. But when he heard about what was happening in Atlantis, he felt compelled to go back to Atlantis and basically put things in order. Now he stops by Aquaman's lighthouse where Mira is staying to speak to her. And long story short, they get into an argument. She tries to stop him from going to Atlantis. He's not having it. They fight. And he pretty much cleans her clock. This is a pretty awesome 2-page spread here. And he's actually going to kill her. But then just as he's about to, the woman and the kid show up. And he's kind of like, uh-oh. So the story, I like the art. The art is pretty good. And the story is fine. Overall, it's pretty good. And then the final story, again, following again from the first issue. This is from the Teen Titans. And this story continues that same storyline. Aqualad is trying to join the Titans. He's come to their headquarters to meet them. And they're having this battle with King Shark. And, I mean, long story short, Aqualad helps them. He wants to join. At first they say no, but then they help him, or he helps them fight King Shark and beat him. And then at the end, they're kind of like, okay, we'll give this a try. You can stay. The story by Ben Percy, who's currently writing X-Force, which I think is actually pretty good. It's probably the best X-Men comic. Pencils by Khoi Pham. Breaks down by Phil Hester. There's a name I hadn't heard in a while. And inks by Wade von Grawbadger. So the story is, it's fine. It's solid. The art is, I mean, it's okay. It's not, I'm not fond of it. The artist, I think he needs to work on his expression some. But, his figure work is good. He depicts action pretty well. No complaints there. It's a very sparse style is what I would say. There's not a lot of detail, not a lot of detail in the figures, not a lot of detail in the background, which isn't necessarily bad. But, I'm not crazy about it personally. As I've said before, these 100-page giants are good values. And Throne of Atlantis alone is worth the $5 cover price. If you can find them, I recommend picking it up. So, how about you? Do you like these 100-page giants? Did you like the Throne of Atlantis story? Or did you want to read it, but you haven't yet? Let me know in the comments. And also, if you like this video, please hit the like button. And please subscribe to the channel on your way out. And hit the bell for notifications of more videos. And I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching.